All right, we are going to move on here to our last panel of the night. And thank you for sticking with us. We appreciate it. We are joined. We'll let Ashley have a seat. All right, we are joined tonight, first of all, by Ashley Frederick. Ashley is the peer director of Ashley's House and also the conference director for Safe Global Conferences. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We are also joined by Professor Rami, who knows more about technology than I'm sure all of us in the room combined, so it's an honor to have him. He is with Ivy Tech. He is a cybersecurity and computer science assistant professor and program chair at Ivy Tech Valparaiso. Thanks for joining us. We are all continue to be joined by our keynote speaker, Moses Farrow, who's a panelist. Besides being a panelist, as I mentioned, he was our keynote speaker. We are joined by from Sheriff Oscar Martinez's office, Vincent Balbo. So thank you for joining us and staying with us here. Next to him is Chief Derek Cannon from the Gary Police Force. Thanks for joining us. And then we're also joined by Agent Brock, and I'm sorry, I may butcher your last name, I apologize, Verskor? Got it, look at that, first guess. Special agent with the GRIT Task Force, and GRIT stands for Gang Response Investigative Team. And last but definitely not least, we are joined by attorney Myra Rodriguez Alvarez, who spends a lot of her practice focused on immigration. So let's give the panel an applause. Thank them for being with us. So we're going to start off, I'm going to start off with you, Ashley. Can you tell us about what your work that you do with Ashley's House?
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me? Okay. So I'm the director of Ashley House. I do peer support with my ladies. At first, they will have a referral called to us on our hotline. We will take that. I usually call the ladies back and get all the information, if they have children, where they're at, if they're still safe or not, if they're at a hospital, what has happened to them. Then I get them in the house. I have Dr. Gopal and my Ashley House human trafficking social worker and my case manager talk to them clinically. We make sure we get all their Medicaid, food stamps, Social Security information, birth certificate, so they can start working. Some people need a little long process and some have a short time. We have up to 2 years, but we've never had someone stay that long. And the quickest turnaround was 5 weeks. It was amazing. Let's see, what else do? We get, thank you. We make sure they are on track to go back to school as college, GED, and then they go back and start their job. They do not pay rent or anything in the house. It is all free of when they stay here. So when they are working, they are saving all their funds. So if they need a car or when they move into an apartment for down payment, first month's rent. On the clinical side, the social working case manager, they plan all the activities. Work one comes in. We are having nurse practitioners and doctors come in and talk to the females regarding different things, weight management, smoking, healthcare, all that fun stuff. We are still getting a lot of activities started, but that is what I do at the Ashley House. I just do a peer support. I talk to the ladies. I've been in their situation. This group of ladies I have in the house right now, 7 of them, I have been in their shoes completely at a different point in my life. And it's amazing to work with them.
Thank you. All right, Professor Rami, let's talk about tech. You are an expert when it comes to cybersecurity. What role and how does cybersecurity connect with what we're talking about tonight with human trafficking?
Well, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Cybersecurity can be used a way to use different cybersecurity tools in order to fight human trafficking. So first we start with the problem is we all sit on the internet, right? In the past, when you make your phone calls in the 80s and 90s, you use what they call circuit switching network. You use what they call a dial-up connection to connect to the internet. But nowadays, every one of us right now connect to a cell phone, tablet, computer that 24 hours connect to the internet. And tablet network right now we deal with called packet switching network, which is permanent connection to the internet. That makes it so vulnerable because our kids and families are constantly connecting to the internet where they could be recruited by traffickers through their cell phone. There's a lot of applications they could use. This application we call it in the science of computer networking voice over internet protocols, which is a way to connect to the internet without actually using your phone line, really using your internet connection. So traffickers, they could actually recruit these victims through a Wi-Fi. They don't even need to connect to cell phone. Technically, once your phone connects to the Wi-Fi, they can make phone calls, and this communication is encrypted. Unfortunately, the same technology we use to actually secure ourselves, credit card transaction, banking transactions, it's called encryption, which is scrambling data, is used by traffickers. So it's very difficult for law enforcement. That's the reason we need more advanced, more trained. We're sending back the law enforcement agency officers back to schools to learn about encryption and cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and all these kind of topics.
Thank you. All right, Moses, I want to go touch on something that you talked about. And you talked about role in terms of mental health. What is the role of mental health when you talk about people that have gone through the trafficking experience?
So the role of mental health?
Yeah, in terms of what kind of mental health support do people need?
Okay. This has been a bit of a journey for me from being more of a generalist as a therapist, working in community-based programs, psychiatric programs, hospital programs. And over the years, what I have found is I have needed to open my eyes to the truth. And at this point, what is needed, what I'm speaking up about is the messaging, the propaganda, the brainwashing that happens that dissociates us from the crime that we're victims of. So within the adoption community, there are many, many survivors, many, many victims that are disconnected from what has happened to them. And to make it palpable for all of you, as Arun was pointing out in his video, we're really not talking about adoption. We're really talking about a crime of exploitation, coercion, and deception through the means of propaganda and propaganda messages that have been around for hundreds of years at this point. So what is needed is a groundbreaking, eye-opening truth to really help us connect with here is what has happened to you when we all say that we have been adopted. Well, what does that really mean? What does it mean to be adopted? And just this year, we have an article that brings to light the business of adoption. Right? And here in the U.S., we're getting familiar with realizing that there is an industry, that there is a business that transacts these adoptions. So the more that we build these bridges within our society, with public forums like this, we can bring that back into the therapy rooms and bring it back to helping survivors and victims realize what has happened to them. And then from there, with that truth, figure out the next steps in the healing process.
Thank you. All right, Chief Balbo, you're really on the front line, law enforcement, you're on the front line. Here in Northwest Indiana, what types of things are you seeing in terms of human trafficking that are happening here locally?
I wanted to touch on the fact that the solution starts in this room today. I've been here for the entire thing. I've listened to everything that's being said, but what you do when you leave this room is important. And I can tell you that, especially being in Northwest Indiana, proximity to Chicago, unfortunately, we're in an extremely bad place. A lot of the influence, a lot of the organized crime, a lot of the things that we're talking about that we see manifested with human trafficking as a result of that. But law enforcement isn't just taking a position. We aren't about putting people in jail anymore. We are going out of our way to train our officers to deal with mental health issues, which is an aspect to this with that, and our officers identifying people that are in need of services. And often with the human trafficking situation, we're seeing other crimes that are related to this. Drug trafficking, and in my prior life, I was a special agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration in Chicago, and we still see those same crimes that support, unfortunately, the elements that are involved in human trafficking. And as we move forward and we're training our officers more to identify this, we're also setting up police agencies. What can we do? We have a 411 tip line that is completely anonymous, and it's so huge. We say and we hear the words, see something, say something. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what neighborhood you come from. There's no demographic. This cuts across every community in Northwest Indiana, and anyone that denies that is lying to themselves. It's unfortunate, and I will tell you, as the head of a police agency, if you even suspect something like this is going on, don't hesitate to call us. We'd rather get the information, have an opportunity to investigate it or react to this. I can tell you there are so many people involved in the human trafficking situation that are looking for the way out, and that way out begins with someone taking the time and making the effort to contact law enforcement and allowing us to what we're trying to do. And some people are reluctant because they think, well, we're going to be putting people in jail. We're going to put the right people in jail. But right now, the biggest thing that we can provide too is that victim support to these individuals that are absolutely forced into this situation, that right now have no alternative but to stay into that type of lifestyle until organizations like this create opportunities for people to get out of that. It's a spiral. It continues to go on, and it's a generational thing. So I just want you to know that law enforcement stands ready to work with you to find permanent, long-term solutions to this problem.
If I can, give me 1 second, if I can add something, I think it was on a previous year of this, someone told a story of they saw a young boy at home during the school days, and they were thinking there's something not right, and I think they called, law enforcement said, I don't know if there's something wrong, but I see this young kid, he should be in school, he's outside playing every day. Can you look into it? And they found out it was a trafficking situation. So that's a great advice in terms of if something looks a little off, say something. Maybe it's nothing, but you could save someone's life. All right, Chief Cannon, I'm going to ask you the same question. You're on the front line, Chief of Gary Police. What kind of things are you seeing out there in terms of human trafficking?
Yeah, first I want to just say thank you to the organizers and sponsors of this event. It really did something to me to be able to see the survivors, the graduates, and also to hear Mr. Farrell speak. You know, it almost kind of likened that into when I'm in the uniform and I'm at a grocery store and I see a little kid come up to me and say, thank you, officer, for doing so much. It's the same thing when law enforcement officers see what's going on, be able to touch people, talk to people, and get that same feedback. In that instance, we are all survivors, right? So we all a community, and we all have to deal with the same thing. And for us being a service provider, that goes a very long way. Just also want to give a shout out to our DCS table back there. We work hand in hand with them, dealing with issues related to child abuse and neglect. And then also, I just want to educate people, because the only thing that's going to get us out of this situation is we have to cure ourselves from ignorance of looking the other way, having a blind eye, just being concerned about ourselves. In Indiana, we have a mandatory reporting law, and I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but if you suspect some type of child abuse or neglect, you must report that to a law enforcement agency and or DCS. And if you don't do that, then you can be held accountable and you can be arrested. It's actually a Class B misdemeanor. And so we shouldn't have to just put laws in place like that, but at the same time, like the sheriff said here, if somebody sees something, they should say something. Trafficking is so subtle at times, and if you think that you're able to escape it in some type of way, then you're really lost in this whole situation. It can be the small house right by the highway, or it can be the large house behind a gated community. And like Professor Rami talked about, we're facing other type of situations of the internet, robocalls, IA, all of these types of things. And it was talked about before where a lot of times the victims of these crimes are facing some type of void, right? And it's up to us to try to meet that need of the void, be aware and fill those situations, because I'm going to tell you, there is a predator out there that is very versed on how to fill those voids and has some type of commonality and relationship with a lot of people that become victim of human trafficking. And so I just want to say, it's really a challenge to everybody. The community is our biggest partner. We cannot do anything as a law enforcement agency without the community. You guys actually vote on situations that we have. We enforce laws, we don't make laws, and we really, really need your help. Legislators like yourself really have to be in this fight together to be able to reduce this problem. And there is a problem. I don't want Northwest Indiana to be blind to these situations. So when you're seeing a situation like when a kid is not going to school, or somebody's out, or I grew up in a time frame where kids went out to play. And I know that that's a little bit different now due to gaming and all of those types of things, but we really have to get back to be able to be a community to solve some of these ills in our community.
All right, Agent Bascore, right?
Yep.
Get it right, got it. All right,
You got
2 for
it
2. So one of the things you do is investigate different types of crimes that are related to human trafficking. What kind of things have you seen?
Is this on? Okay.
Yeah.
I know we've had issues with this all night, but hopefully it'll stay with us as long as we're all just gonna. Are we all awake? Yes. All right. I can echo a lot of the things that some of our law enforcement partners have already shared. There's many things that we see as trends within this particular space. The trends of drugs being leveraged in that scenario. A lot of our victims that we come across, those are things that are introduced to the victim or leveraged in a situation where maybe they already had some form of addiction. And those things hold a lot of power in those relationships. Again, to echo some other things that have been mentioned tonight, as technology evolves, it becomes increasingly more difficult for law enforcement to take the appropriate measures investigatively, as we see more and more inclination for bad actors to use these encrypted applications where, unfortunately, sometimes those communications are just non-accessible to us investigatively. So I think there's a lot of challenges that we are going to face as these things continue to evolve, and as law enforcement we're constantly looking for ways to strengthen our investigations, and I think this is almost a pivotal point in a lot of our careers, to be thinking of how we address these changes, how we don't get left behind. As I know one thing that we consistently see more and more of is the criminal element being more willing to move into digital currency. And that is something that I see very similar to some of these communication pieces where, as law enforcement, we need to be consistently looking at ways to address that from an investigative standpoint. And so those are the things that our office is constantly trying to be ahead of the curve as best as we can and be aware of the ways in which these criminal elements elements are utilizing these tools that we sometimes become all too familiar with in our normal lives, but become major hurdles in an investigative setting.
Thank you. All right, Madam Attorney, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you everyone for staying, whoever stayed thus far. I appreciate it.
And I just want to remind those of you on stage, you're still the best looking audience ever.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so one of the things, your law practice focuses on immigration.
Yes.
And we know that at times, and when you talk about people coming into the country or being brought into the country, it's connected sometimes to human trafficking. So you actually help people to come in legally, safe way, et cetera. What kind of things do you want people to know about the visa process that hopefully will help prevent the negative side and the bad things from happening?
So we have dealt in the past 3 to 4 years, and I mentioned this when I was a speaker last year, with a lot more cases of human trafficking, and that is because I uncover them in my intake. Unfortunately, immigrants are especially subject to be victims of human trafficking because of the power and control that their legal status has, that they use as leverage to control. As Harold pointed out earlier, he was able to become a U.S. citizen through cooperation with the FBI, but congratulations, by the way. Yes. It was not easy for Harold, I'm sure, to come forward and to find his safe person. And I have the privilege of being, most of the time, the first safe person that somebody confides their secret and, their shame to, and my staff, who is also trained, gets to uncover their stories. And, shout out to my staff who has to hear these stories lately. We come across them every day, unfortunately. Just an individual yesterday who, I can't speak of too many details of what he's subjected to, but one of the cruelest things I found is that when he spoke up against his abuser, he was put in a separate closet to have lunch without any kind of air conditioning or heat in the winter, just for speaking up about his abuse. So he's forced to eat out of a closet just for speaking up, and that's just one of the many things that he has to go through, on top of the fact that he feels imprisoned there because of his legal status. So with the T visa specifically, my office, we try to, in our intake, ask questions to see if they've been victims of human trafficking. They may not even know it. The elements of human trafficking for a T visa are when there is fraud, coercion, and control, and depending on the situation that you're in. Specifically in Northwest Indiana, we've uncovered a lot of labor-based human trafficking, people that are working overtime and not being compensated, people that are stuck working in a situation after hours and not being paid, or belittled, cussed out, physically abused sometimes, just to do their job. And most of these victims feel trapped because they feel if they speak out or leave, that they're going to have immigration called on them. Like I said, we've had a lot of these cases in Northwest Indiana. And then we also have dealt a lot lately with relationship-based human trafficking, where the women especially feel trapped in a relationship that they can't leave. They're forced to cook, clean, serve their individual, and the minute that they try to leave or speak up, they're subject to more abuse. And also their immigration status is used as leverage and control. And then the third one we deal with, which is a little more rare, but we do deal with it, is the smuggling portion of the T visa, when they were forced to, when they were crossing the border, to involve themselves in acts that they did not consent to, such as sexual or transporting goods and illegal goods, like, as you guys have mentioned, drugs, narcotics. So those are the three things that we have uncovered lately. And like I said, we were getting busier and busier, unfortunately, with these cases. But like I said, as long as I feel privileged in a way, it's a horrible thing, but I'm glad that we're able to find them, their help, and put them on a path.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you. Don't give up the mic yet. So you're really involved with advocacy in this area. What are the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenges is the misconceptions behind immigration. I probably make it out of my office 3 to 4 times a year to try to speak on these types of events. I'm so busy, but I make it a point, especially when it comes to human trafficking or child sexual abuse, right? But what I notice when I'm out, and this goes to just generally the community, but more importantly and unfortunately, some of our elected officials and some people in power do not understand the immigration process, and the only thing that they do with it is basically pander for election time about being all about immigrant rights, but yet they don't understand what it is. The immigration process is, or why people come here undocumented, or the different paths immigration takes. Immigration law is one of the most complicated areas of law. It's very nuanced, and it's a very gray area. Nothing is black and white in immigration. So when I have to see a newspaper article where even, elected officials are calling, dehumanizing the immigrants by calling them illegals, and, instead of offering help, or, for example, oh, you've done such a great job and I commend you for advocating, I don't know how many years at this point, since you've been in the State House, for identifications for everybody in the state. That means including the undocumented. It's our business as a state and as in the cities that we live in, and the townships, to protect the safety of the residents, right? Immigration, that's a federal thing. Let me deal with it. Let the feds deal with it. Your job, everybody here and everybody on the stage, is to ensure the safety of the area you're in. So if you guys advocate for identifications, that makes everything much easier. So if I have an individual that's being trafficked and they're not allowed to get an identification, how are they going to get help? How are you going to identify their trafficker, who may also be undocumented, right? So it becomes a safety issue more than anything, but people like to use it as a puppet during election time, that, oh, we're not going to incentivize people that break the law. Well, like I said, let the feds deal with that. Let lawmakers in Congress maybe create laws to, pay a fine, do what they have to do. As long as the individual is here, contributing to the community, paying taxes, why not give them an identification to make everything safer for everybody else? I mean, in the state of Indiana, an undocumented person is supposed to pay their taxes. They can purchase a home, but you can't give them identification, So that's one of the things that really is upsetting to me sometimes when I go to these events. And I would like to make it a point at some point, like I said, we're so busy right now, and I have some of my paralegals. In fact, one of them left Thursday to law school to become an attorney. I'm trying to get more attorneys, more immigration attorneys, because it's very hard to get, especially that speak different languages. So any of the young people here that, or anybody actually in general, I went to law school with somebody that was 63 years old. It's never too late. If you want to become an immigration attorney, we need them. But yeah, the main thing is the education on the immigration process. And I would like to make it a point at some point to get out and have some kind of trainings for elected officials to know what it is from start to finish to become a citizen, because you can't just get online. You can't get online, you can't fill a form online and pay a fine or a fee. It's not possible. So at some point I'll make that, and I'll make everybody in this room the first group. So.
Thank you. And as one of those elected officials, I'll echo, sometimes some of the other elected officials don't always understand the things you've talked about. And also, I'm not an attorney or a lawyer, but last time I checked, a person cannot be illegal. So I won't get up too much on my soapbox. So, all right, we're going to, Special Agent, I want to go touch on something you talked about with your first question. You talked about technology. I like technology. I think technology is great. You brought up some of the shall we say, negative ways technology has been used in trafficking. In terms of helping in positive ways, are there some positive ways that technology has been able to help stop it, catch people, et cetera?
Absolutely. So within the Bureau's context, we have a lot of resources at our disposal. Many of those resources are across the board with law enforcement, and some of those resources become immensely valuable to us investigatively. So as we continue to see that landscape change, we also continue to see our tools and our resources change as well. So within that context, I think we're continuing to improve the ability that we have to mine data from mobile devices, for instance, to capture more and more of the information that may have been on a device, and therefore leading to more and more potential evidence. Within that, some other things that we continue to see evolving in our investigative tool set is more harnessing of data from traffic that's happening on the internet. As the internet is a vehicle for communication, we see it to be a massive vehicle for communication within the human trafficking space as well. There are websites that people use, and we have the ability to go back historically into those websites with tools and resources that we have to look at more of the historical patterns within phone numbers that are being utilized to post these ads, and seeing trends within that space to see, is this a person who maybe is, kind of posting on their own volition, or is this a person that seems to be associated with the same phone number, multiple individuals, and therefore a higher indication that this individual is being trafficked by another individual. So we continue to see the technology evolve for our benefit as well. So I don't want to, make technology out to be the enemy here. Certainly, it's one of the things that as we continue our work, we continue to get better and better at what we're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I was watching, it was either a podcast or something on television, and they were talking about a case where someone denied, I wasn't involved in that murder, I had nothing to do with it, I wasn't there, et cetera. And they went, well, we've tracked your cell phone, and we can tell you exactly where you went all night long. So it really, I know there's some things we talk about on the negative side with tracking, but it really can be a big help in terms of knowing where people are and what they're doing. All right, Chief, I'm going to put a little bit pressure on myself, and there's still some, I think, legislative people in the room. How can we help you do what you do to try to prevent human trafficking from expanding, growing, and try to stop it?
Okay. I just want to expand off what the special agent was talking about real quick. We talked about breaking down silos and things of that nature in this own room. I really challenge people to break down silos in your own home. And what I mean by that is a lot of young people have cell phones. 9 times out of 10, you guys are paying the bill for that cell phone but don't have access to it in some type of way. So I would challenge you to just periodically be able to check your child's cell phone to see what type of conversations that they're having, and sometimes you would be surprised. In the law enforcement realm, there have been times where we have these crime situations going on, and we have to do what we call a phone dump, or to forensically go through a person's phone, and the information that we find is astounding. Some of these predators out here groom our children for months, sometimes even years. And we talk about people sometimes that can be in their own circle, meaning like within the school system or within the social or the church, things of that nature. So what I would challenge you to do is break down the silos within your own home and look inside of your children's phone. And what I mean by children, by our standards, that means 17 and under, and especially if you're paying for the bill. And I hope that doesn't cause any challenges, but I will hope that you would find the benefit, that you would have a better relationship with your son or daughter, and that you would be able to get information. So now, how can you help us? I think that a lot of situations like this, just opening up the conversation is really where it starts at. This situation is ever evolving, and we have to meet the need. There's always a balance. There's a quid pro quo about what society expects from us. Society expects for us as law enforcement to be able to keep them safe, and for that, they have to give up certain rights to do that. And so that's where the legislature comes in, is giving the law enforcement the authority to be able to do certain things. I would speak, on our agency, we have great relationships with our partners, the Lake County Prosecutor's Office. We have a great relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office, things of the nature. You know, we have a process in place where we have probable cause to do something. You know, we can file for a warrant and we can do certain things and we can go a little bit further. But at the same time, that is a lengthy process. And so I think, you know, just by legislators and service members getting together, because it's not just law enforcement, but it's other partners, everybody at this table will be able to just have those periodic conversations to see what's trending and how can we meet those needs.
It goes back to a comment, I think one of the panel, I think it was Judge McDermott, and I added on to it, is it's all about the community, and all of us are part of that community. All right, Chief Balbo, I'm asking you the same question. What
I just want to add to what the chief said, and this is really important. The Indiana State Legislature in the last 3 to 4 years has recognized a huge need for mental health support services in this state. It's huge. It drains resources from all of us, and the state of Indiana, and I know that you've been very much involved in this, and we appreciate it. We really recognize that we absolutely have to, and I'm telling all of you, call your legislator, call your representative, call your state senators, and continue to encourage them to provide money focusing specifically on mental health resources that really also include, and I did see a couple reverends out here, or pastors that I worked with in the past. I can't tell you how it's important these community-based groups and the churches are at the end of the day, because often people don't want to come talk to the police, but they do want to turn to somebody, and having those alternatives, having those non-government organizations involved, just like Ashley House, but it's so important now for the state of Indiana to continue to embrace the need for mental health services and victim witness services. That is the most important thing. If these people involved in these types of crimes as a victim or being forced to be involved in it, if they don't have an alternative to go to get out of this lifestyle, they will never be out of this lifestyle. So it's so important to set up these victim witness support services through prosecutor's office and through the entire community.
Thank you. And if I can add something, I mentioned the IBLC Town Hall, which is taking place on August 17th. We have a focus every year, an agenda every year. So this year in 2024, it was related to housing. We know that's a big issue. For 2025, we've announced it has to do with healthcare, and that's both on the physical side and the mental health side. So if you have suggestions, what happens is all of us can contribute one piece of legislation that we're authoring to the agenda, and we have a press conference and promote it all year. We are always open to ideas. So if there are suggestions, ideas you have in the mental health area, please let me know or let members know, and we'll look at adding those into the agenda. But thank you for that. Mr. Farrow, I want to ask you a question that goes back to, related to identifying and paying attention. What kind of things, and because a lot of this is about educating people who may not know about human trafficking, may not know signs and all that. What kind of things would you suggest we look for in terms of seeing a person that may be human trafficked and know how to reach out and get some help for that person?
So first I want to say thank you for your message just now. The need for mental health services is desperately needed. Here's where it's at for me, is that we don't know, because we are constantly being told it's this, it's adoption. So let me go kind of down the table here, as each of you have shared about cybersecurity, about technology, about community, about victims under threat. For me and my population of, say, adopted people, we're under threat of being rehomed. We're under threat of being put in front of social media and YouTube, TikTok. We're under threat all the time of having to appeal to our legislators for birth certificate reform, to gain access to our birth certificates. I have shifted gears from, it's not about gaining our original birth certificates. It's about gaining our birth records that have been altered, that have been rewritten as if they are birth certificates. But so in my mind, they're really not birth certificates anymore. So when we talk about community, when we talk about the use of technology, when we talk about the victims under threat, for me, on the mental health side, here's where we're at, is we're just starting to recognize, we're just starting to pull back the veils of the propaganda and the brainwashing and all that. So when you say we need mental health services, appeal to your legislators, for me, it starts with we need well-trained, well-informed, trauma-informed, everything, encompassing that of we need people who already know what it is that's going on. And for those of us who don't really identify as a victim, we have to act now. We have to do this today. Because the way that I see it is adoption is occurring every day. The appeal for foster parents, for adoptive parents, is occurring every day at every level of society. So we have to we at least have to balance it out with those who are aware, informed, willing to listen, willing to come together in community as allies. Let's have those conversations. Let's start there. And then build out the environment, the safety net, the support systems, everything that it takes to bring someone back and restore them to who they are.
Thank you. All right, Professor, we cannot talk technology, I believe, in today's day without bringing up AI. So there's a lot of cool things, a lot of creative things people have done with AI. People have gone on ChatGPT and have it help them with emails and memos and lists and everything like that. And I asked the question already knowing the answer, has AI been used in the world of trafficking?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, same technology we use it to protect ourselves is actually used by the traffickers. They actually hire one of the best hackers in the world because this is a market for them. It's a multi-million dollars industry. So, attackers, they actually have I have a case. One of my acquaintance, his daughter, she was actually victim to AI attacks because they took her picture from the internet and put it into an AI tool online and were able to duplicate her body naked and send to everybody around high school. So he reached out to me, I reached out to a different law enforcement agency, and I give him my technical feedback. You cannot protect anymore yourself because the minute you take that picture has what we call data within the picture, we call it metadata. And that metadata can actually tell me exactly your location on Earth, on map, where you took that picture. So the minute that child communicated with the predator knows exactly the location of that child, fortunately. Now, the good news, AI could be also used on our side, the good people, to fight human trafficking. So AI could be used for victim identification. So we use pattern recognition. We can actually see match these different victim pictures in a massive database, government agency database, open database online. Nowadays, everybody have access to the internet. Your phone is actually in a thematic database collection of pictures. So I'm not going to scare everybody here, but anytime you text somebody a file or a picture, that picture can be intercepted if you text it using your phone company. But if you text it using an app like we call it voice over internet protocol, like WhatsApp. Anybody use WhatsApp or Viber or Signals, right? This is more like secure communication. So when my 3 little girls, when they actually communicate with me, I make sure we always use WhatsApp communication. I do not let them use the traditional texting. AI also could be used for not only for victim identification, but also for suspect identification and apprehension, because we could find out, we can scan massive social media and we can find out these are the pictures that we could recognize as the traffickers. So technology can be used on both sides. In my opinion, the best protection to our community and families and religious institution is always educating your families and kids. Within Ivy Tech, what I teach cybersecurity, and nowadays we get into AI. We're doing a lot of research right now with Purdue Northwest and also IU. And we have also here a representative from Purdue Northwest. We have a senior research scientist, Mr. Jack Moreland here. Actually, I'm working with him right now with multiple applications. We may, in the future, we work in some type of visualization application where we can actually pinpoint immediately the location of the victims and the location of the predators also. So technology could be a sort of double-edged, could be used by both parties.
Thank you. All right, Ashley, you're going to bring us home tonight.
Oh, okay.
So what's the one thing, like there's one message you would like our audience to know about. What is that message?
Jeez.
Sorry, I put the pressure on her.
Yeah, you did. If you see something, say something. If someone asks for help, just listen, because you never know that you might be able to help that person.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Just
Thank you.
Be nice.
Can we give our panel an applause? So I want to, real quick before we close, and I want to show you something, and I want you to let me know if you've seen this before, or if you know what it means. All right. How many people have seen that before? What does it mean? Help. So I was looking into human trafficking and I came across a video, and it was, the video was an older man who was walking with a young girl, and he was holding on to her tight, and she looked uncomfortable. And as they're walking, they're in a hotel, and as they're walking past a young lady, she looks at them, thinks that doesn't quite look right, and she watches them as they pass by, and the little girl does this. And the first thing she did was call 911, and then the video shows the police security grabbing the gentleman before they leave the hotel. So going back to, as Ashley said at the end, please pay attention. The signs are always out there. We can decrease and hopefully eliminate this problem, and you being here is a big part of that. So thank you very much, everybody.
Put your lips like this, even before